All right, guys, welcome to Minisode number 6 on the More Than Fitness podcast. Today's topic is how to be more likable. Okay? 2 things about this. First, this is the most narcissistic topic that I've ever talked about in my entire life. And who the fuck am I to give any advice on this whatsoever, right? First off, you're going to see this title and instantly be like, oh, wow, I don't like this guy. But second, what I'm most sure of is that if there's one thing that my mom has passed down to me as her child, it is the ability to be likable and emotional intelligence around other people. My mom recruits doctors at a hospital for a living. She's the director of all the other physician recruiters in the hospital. So she has to be really good at talking to people. And whenever I'm talking about being more likable and being a good talker, what I don't want to come across is being manipulative and having a negative connotation about what this actually means, right? Because there's a fine line. You can be someone who's really persuasive, and then so you have. I don't know why my brain just went to this, but you have someone like Hitler. All right. Hitler was actually a very charismatic guy. And I think, at least, I'm not some fucking history guru, but I'm pretty sure he was pretty charismatic. He was pretty persuasive as a person. So you have that type of quote unquote likability. However, there's a fine line, because think about if Hitler, what the fuck am I talking about? Think about if Hitler took all of those same characteristics, that charisma and the likability and that persuasiveness. Think if he just turned it 2 dials the other way, and then he could have been one of the greatest figures of all time, right? He could have been this super amazing person if he would have used his powers for good as opposed to evil, right? So that's what I want to clarify first. And whenever I'm talking about how to be more likable, I'm just talking about making a good first impression on somebody, or just having a conversation. Like this podcast is one of the prime examples of honing in my communication skills even more so. Like I thought I was a somewhat good communicator before the podcast, but then the podcast has made me take things up a notch. It's made me notice little verbal tics here and there, like or so, or whatever. And I noticed certain things and I still do it. But the podcast has helped me hone in on those skills, and then also learn how to ask better questions and actually listen to what the person is saying, and all these other plethora of skills just by talking with these people. But there's something to be said about having, like, think about the last time you had a really great conversation with someone. Like think about the good feeling that evokes in both parties whenever you've given them some advice, they've given you some advice, and you both mutually benefited from talking to each other. Both of your lives are better because that conversation was had, right? That's such a good, like, primal human feeling, right? To communicate well with somebody else and to both benefit as the outcome. And so this is why I think it's an important skill to learn. And there's not many people that talk about this. So I don't think that I'm super qualified or anything like that. I just think in my experience, I've typically gotten along well with almost everybody that I've met. And I would like to think that I have something to say that could help you as a result. So the first thing I want to say is that everybody is on a level playing field. Right? Everybody, just like you, is drowning in concern. Drowning in self-concern, right? So every time you meet somebody, they are drowning in just as much self-concern about making that a good conversation as you are, right? So everybody's got their own shit going on in their life, and everybody that you talk to is also trying to make sure that you accept them, that you are impressed by them, whether people will admit it or not. It's just like, everybody is trying to reach the same goal that you are. It's like whenever you watch a public speaker and they start messing up, you can feel the tightness inside your chest. You can feel, you're like, I get embarrassed whenever I see someone else fucking up on stage, because we want them to do well. We want this to go because you can feel the pain that they're having. So it's not like people are wanting to have these conversations and they are wanting you to have wanting you to fail, right? They want to have a good conversation with you. So just know that everybody, just like you, is having tons of anxiety or worries and their own self-concern, just like you are. So yeah, that's kind of the first thing that I wanted to talk about. The second thing, some of the best advice that I can give whenever having conversations with people, and what I've learned from this podcast, one of the best, because people ask if I have questions lined up for my guests, or if I prepare a lot ahead of time, and I really don't. What I do is I try and get a good understanding of who that person is as a person, just kind of what their story is, what their vibe is, like who they are as a person, things they're interested in. I'll even look at like maybe who they're following or something, just to kind of get a feel of who this person is, and I'll read their captions. And what I do is I just get curious. So whenever you're having a conversation with another person, I want you to try to have that person talk way more than you're talking. Because this is a sales technique, actually. The thing in sales is to have the other person speak way more than you're speaking. Because as humans, we like to talk about ourselves. So it's going to make, if me and you are talking, right, and you start asking me questions and I'm doing the majority of the talking, I'm actually going to like you more because I feel good about talking about myself. And so therefore, I end up actually liking you more. So my best advice is to be curious, right? Ask them questions, right? Like I think the problem where people struggle is that they are trying to impress the person they're talking to. So they think, oh, I need to tell them all about this and this and this. But then it just becomes, you're just spouting out like your own whatever metaphorical resume about why this person should love you. And unless this person has an ego of steel and they're very confident in themselves or whatever, it's like whenever you tell somebody, certain people, about all of your accomplishments and all these things that you've done and all the reasons why they should be impressed with you, oftentimes they'll just get resentful and end up not liking you. And they'll be like, oh, this person's just super self-absorbed. They don't care about anything that I'm interested in. So why should I care about them? I don't like this. I'm done talking to this person. I'm not getting anything except all the shit that they think they're so great at. And all it takes is one thing that you think that you're an expert in, or one thing that you think you're super smart in, and that this other person that you're talking to, maybe they know more about it. And then you say something with super high conviction or confidence, and then they're like, oh no, that's completely wrong. This person's an idiot. And yet they think that they are super smart, etc. Right? So that's another thing that I think that you should make sure that the other person does more talking than you do. You need to be curious, ask them questions. And another thing is to, I know listen closely is bad advice, but what I mean by that is too often we are so concerned about what the other person is thinking about us. We don't listen to them close enough, and then we don't ask good questions. We don't ask follow-up questions to what they're saying because we're distracted by our own thinking. We're sitting there thinking, oh, I bet this person thinks I'm stupid. I bet they think I have no idea what I'm talking about. I bet they think this. I bet they think that. And this whole time that you should be listening to this other person so that you can stay curious and ask better questions, you're judging yourself. And then the conversation, you kind of self-sabotage yourself, right? You're kind of shooting yourself in the foot because you become distracted. Almost knocked over my drink. You become distracted, and then they notice it, and then the conversation is just not as good. So instead of that, like, make sure that you do listen to them closely so that you can ask them better questions. You don't want to miss what they're actually saying. And that's exactly how you start out. You don't, whenever, to make a conversation really good, to make someone like you, it's like, let them do all the work, right? That's kind of what podcasting is. You have, at least to some extent, you're just asking the other person questions, but the type of questions you ask say a lot about you as a person. It shows, are you listening? Are you critically thinking about what they're talking about? Are you actually interested in what they have to say? I think if you can do that, that's going to be super helpful as well. I think the How to Win Friends and Influence People, that's a great book. If you do have social anxiety or you're just trying to become more likable as a person, I think that's a great book to read. And so the typical stuff, so smiling more, whenever you meet a person in the first place, look them in the eye, shake their hand firmly, repeat their name. So I say, hi, my name's Matt. They say, hi, my name's George. I'm like, oh, George, nice to meet you, right? It's just a respect thing. And then also, if you can remember their name, if you can recall someone's name who think that you didn't listen to their name, or that you just thought, oh, I'm just meeting this person randomly, they don't matter, whatever. If you meet that person again in a month and you recall their name, it's like they're going to think so highly of you whenever I'm like, oh, hey, George, how you doing? Because then it's like, how many times have you met somebody that you met like a month ago and then you don't remember their name? So you're like, oh, hey, you, or hey, bro, how's it going? Hey, man. That's always my go-to. So yeah, if you don't remember their name, it's just like that takes so much of that personal connection out of it. So yeah, if you want to learn a little bit more about this stuff, I would definitely recommend How to Win Friends and Influence People. But yeah, I think those few things. So remember, everyone else is drowning in self-concern just like you are. Don't stress yourself out so much just because the other person is probably stressing just as much as you are. And we all just want to be liked and accepted. And we're all in the same boat, right? Next up is to make sure that you're stay curious. So be curious, ask them a lot of questions, make sure that they speak more than you do. And to lastly, make sure that when you do listen to them, you are actually listening to them and not just listening so that you can respond next with something that will impress them with whatever you have to say. Because again, a little bit of that is going to be okay, right? Because it's kind of like ping pong back and forth. But if you have too much of like, oh, look at me, I'm amazing, it's not going to work out as well for you as you may think. Figure out ways to make the other person feel awesome about themselves. Make them feel super smart or super impressed or whatever. And if you genuinely do this and you ask the appropriate questions based off of stuff that you're actually curious about, like the key to making this all work is to be genuine and to it's got to be real. It's got to be honest. Like, you have to actually ask these questions because you're genuinely curious in them, and then just follow down that rabbit hole. Whatever they say, like, you can make any conversation be interesting, right? Like, lead it to something that, and especially if you know a little bit about that person, you know that they have a strong point in this certain area, try and lead it down that area so that you can be like, oh yeah, that's super amazing. Make them feel good about themselves. And then I promise they will feel good about you. You will become more likable because you are so interested in them. And that's how you make an impact on other people. So that's Minisode number 6, how to be more likable. I'll put a few of those. I'll put a link for the book that I discussed, and then I'll write them out as well in the description. And if you have any more suggestions on this topic, either books or tips that you may have on your own, please don't hesitate to comment below on YouTube or send me a DM on Instagram or send me an email at matt@mcleodconsultingservices.com. All right, guys, until next time, I'll see you.